Let's just check in with producer Susie. She's running things from the luxury saloon of the top pub in Bristol.
Hello.
Oh, right, okay. And our drink of the day?
I think a nice glass of white wine.
Okay, that actually sounds quite good. What are we going for, would you say?
Maybe a nice Sauvignon would be nice.
Okay, very good. 125 ml, because it's still quite early. A little bit of Sauvignon, very nice.
Oh, rubbish.
No, 250?
Always 250.
Always 250.
right.
Okay, sorry. A generous serving.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Okay, today's confession. Thank you for all the ones that came in over the weekend. Just word of advice in general. Can you keep them legal? Because if they break the law, they're no good to us.
Okay.
But thank you. Today's comes from Alistair. Father Simon and the entourage, after listening to many confessions, I really feel the time is right to fess up and seek absolution. After all, this has been causing me sleepless nights for at least 24 hours. I am a grassroots football referee. I don't think I've had one from a football referee before. With a long and illustrious career of being useless and giving decisions that upset numerous beer-bellied footballers at weekends for a number of years now. It's a skill honed to perfection since 1988 when I took up the whistle and the black uniform. A few years back, I did several games as an assistant referee in the Ryman Youth League, which involves several decent non-league clubs under 18 teams. On this particular Tuesday, I'd been assigned to a game at Staines Town FC. They were facing a local derby against Kingstonian. The excitement was unbelievable, and this was confirmed by the official attendance of 43 on the night in question. Arriving around 75 minutes before kickoff, I made my way to the officials' changing room. First in, I dumped my rather tatty bag on the bench, took a seat and chomped on a dinner of champions, a chocolate bar and an energy drink, and I awaited my fellow officials. A few minutes later, two rather smartly dressed fellas arrived, namely the referee, let's call him Whistling Jack, and the other assistant, we'll call him Flag Hippo. Greetings were exchanged and talk turned to the rather boring, where were you at the weekend kind of stuff. Whistle seemed a little bit miffed that when asked the same question, I told him that I had officiated a classic Sunday league game in a rather pokey and horrible ground where the 7-4 scoreline told you all you needed to know about how bad the football was. Now, football referees are graded by level. I was then, I was before, and always will be a level 7. I never sought a higher plane, although probably should have done. Whistling Jack seemed astounded, himself a level 4, his assistant a level 5, to the point that his reaction almost screamed, "What on earth have I done to deserve this portly level of 7 ref in one of my lines?" Anyway, that's the way he took it, and I was a little bit narked. Again, as most refs will know, after a quick warm-up, we moved back to the changing rooms for what they call instructions. This is where the main man or woman tells his or her assistants that what he or she wants from them in terms of decision-making and signalling. Although I'd have thought that was fairly straightforward.
Yeah.
It was at this point that Whistling Jack removed his prized possessions from his bag, a set of buzzard linesman flags.
Ooh.
Neatly laid out in a black box, they look more like a Black & Decker drill set. Buzzer flags are for drawing the ref's attention. You press a button on the flag, it buzzes on the ref's arm pad.
Yes, it does, yeah.
Whistling Jack gave us one flag each and asked me if I'd used one before. I hadn't, but Flag Hippo on the other side had. So Whistling Jack's attention switched to me. His instructions about how to use said flags and when to buzz turned into a monologue that Salvatore Cossita would have been proud of in the opening of The Godfather. That's the big opening scene.
Yeah.
His almost 10-minute speech, which, let's face it, just talked about when I should be pressing the buzzer, was demeaning and boring. At one point, I thought Flag Hippo was going to have to nudge me to check I was still awake. Anyway, taking the field, Whistling Jack's condescending words still ringing in my ears, I was thinking to myself, it's time to have a little bit of fun. The game started. About 10 minutes in, a wayward shot from the away side that saw the ball go flying out of the stadium gave me my first opportunity. Me, right down the other end, away from the action, I pressed my button. Clearly buzzed on Mike's arm. Clearly buzzed on Whistling Jack.
Yes, no, that's what we all heard. Yeah.
Select all.
Yeah.
My Whistling Jack's up. And looked directly at me, but with no flag waving, he appeared confused. I buzzed it again as he got closer. He came a good 45 yards all the way to where I was standing and asked me what was up. I said, "I haven't buzzed. Not me. Nothing." Mike thought it must be a glitch and restarted the game with a goal kick. Well, I thought this is highly unprofessional, but it's quite funny, and proceeded to buzz him up whenever I thought it would liven proceedings. Buzz, and then another buzz. Then a triple buzz. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Each time Whistling Jack started to run over, I'd shake my head. Nope, nothing here. And he looked furious. My best effort was to buzz the beats of Wake Me Up Before You Go-Go twice. Whistling Jack was going berserk. In my defence, I only did it when I had no effect on the game's outcome. At half-time, the first conversation in the dressing room was Jack's arm, going thermonuclear from my buzzing. You can imagine my face when he took my flag and opened the casing, believing it to be a battery problem or some such technological malfunction that was causing the vibration. I suggested maybe someone in the crowd was interfering with it remotely. I told my wife, says Whistling Jack, that I thought the batteries were going at the weekend. He ranted. The batteries were duly changed, and I even swapped flags with Flag Hippo. I thought this might look a bit suspicious if I carried on my prank in the second half, so I took the opportunity just once towards the end of the game. A quick, young guns having some fun. Classy, I thought. Full time came and we made our way to the ref's room, where we all had our 10-minute discussion on the expensive piece of kit that he now had in his bag. Whistling Jack said he'd decided that he was going to take his buzzing flags back to the supplier and demand his money back or replacements. I would definitely do that, I said. I mean, you must know I wouldn't be pressing the button just for the sake of it, because that would be childish. Whistling Jack agreed. The flags were put away in his box and confined to his kit bag, and we made our way to the bar. Many years on, I feel the need to own up and throw myself at the mercy of Simon & Co., as well as the good people listening in, praying to be absolved of a crime, as I would ask them to put themselves in the same position, demeaned by a fellow official who thought that I was a 4-year-old child. Well, I certainly wasn't having anything to do with that. Anyway, where Jack and Flag Hippo are now, I have no idea. I continued to referee. I hope I can be found innocent, says Alistair. First of all, Sister Susie, live from the pub saloon bar.
Well, Alistair, you know, it's all fun and games, isn't it? And it does sound very, very funny. And maybe you didn't deserve that 10-minute speech at the beginning. But I've just got to think about, and, you know, Brother Matt will know more about this than me, but wouldn't it have disrupted the game? What about the players that were supposed to be playing a game of football? And also, think about the conversation the company had when he tried to take it back, Whistling Jack, having a rant. And I don't think they deserved it, so I'm not going to forgive you.
No forgiveness there, brother from...
I mean, you're absolutely right, Suze. It would have disrupted the game quite a lot. However, I'm going to be in Alistair's corner on this one, because quite clearly Whistling Jack, talking down to, demeaning his team, absolutely had it coming. And the point where I decided I was definitely going to be in Alistair's corner was when he decided to start buzzing it to the sound of Wake Me Up Before You Go-Go. Clearly Alistair's not planning on going solo. Oh, yes, definitely forgiven.
Okay, people's verdict, please.
Yeah. Wow.
61054. You start your message with Simon. Forgiven or not? Thank you. 11 minutes past 6. Did a confession just before the news from Alistair. Our first confession ever, I think, from a football referee who is taking advantage of the fact that Whistling Jack had buzzard... Is that what they all called buzzard flags?
Yes, yeah.
Flags with buzzers on.
Correct.
And so you could attract the referee's attention. Anyway, he was beating out all kinds of wham hits on his buzzer and taking advantage of Whistling Jack and Flag Hippo. Anyway, here's the people's verdict. What do they say?
So Ali in London is forgiving. When asked to not press a button, you will press a button.
That's true.
Too tempting to resist. But Michelle says, not forgiven. If it wasn't official work, then you could have a play around, but this was a proper paid job. But Dino in Huyton says, not forgiven. Spoken to like a 4-year-old, behaved like a 4-year-old. Instead, he should be promoted to the Premier League, where, given last year's standards, he'd fit in perfectly.
Very good. Okay, so we'd love your confession. If you're a referee, you know referee, or an umpire, or a linesman, something like that, send us your confession, please. confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk. If we use it, we swap it for a smart speaker, and Alistair gets today's smart speaker. More tomorrow. Producer Susie is busy working on the show. How are we doing so far, Producer Susie? Give us I'd like a mark out of 10, please.
Probably a 20 out of 10.
Okay, there was a slight hesitation there, just at the beginning, which made me slightly uncomfortable.
Come on.
What is our drink of the day, please? What should we be working with?
Well, I think a nice rosé would be perfect for this weather.
Very good. Again, let's not mess around with a 125. We'll go straight for the 250, shall we?
Yeah, two of them.
Straight for the 250.
250 bill, because as you were saying just now, you don't stick at 125. You always go for the 250 anyway, eventually. Here's today's confession. It comes from Casey. Casey, thank you very much indeed for sending in today's tale. Casey gets the smart speaker for this. Simon and the crew of Justice and Common Sense. The incident for which I crave forgiveness happened more than 20 years ago, but hearing today's confession about the hot neighbour, you know, the postman who was from down the road, jogged my memory as it was all but forgotten and buried in the mists of time. When it happened, I was good friends with a Canadian lady whose husband had long wished to own a dog. And not just any dog, a Malamute. Now, to the uninitiated, these are big, glorious creatures, very much at home in the wilds of Canada. It's called an Alaskan Malamute. They're like a sledge dog. That's basically what it is. Okay. All fine and lovely, except she lived in Croydon. Suffice to say, the dog, whilst gorgeous and fluffy and friendly, was also large and strong and adventurous and looked like we would call a husky. Not ideal to suit it if you're living in Croydon. Other southeastern suburban locations this is applicable to. My friends want, and I looked one up, Marlon, they look beautiful, but you can imagine if you're in the middle of Croydon / anywhere else in the middle of town, not ideal. Casey says, my friends wanted to go away for a few days and knowing that I was a dog lover, asked if I might consider hosting the pooch to enable them to take their trip. We agreed a trial visit was a good idea to see if the dog and I and my house were suited. The dog, let's call him Beast. He wasn't a beast, he was a big bundle of fluff, but the name is useful for what follows. Came round, sniffed things in the garden, promptly blotted his copybook by peeing on a corner cabinet. Things were not looking good. Beast then noticed the door to the garden was open and trotted outside, leaving me to clear up the puddle and my shamefaced friend to apologise for her dog's rudeness. We got talking and it was a good 15 to 20 minutes before we noticed that Beast had reappeared. His paws were unaccountably wet and muddy, and he looked a little bedraggled, but we assumed he'd been digging in the flower beds and both agreed that sadly he'd be a less than ideal house guest, so they would have to look somewhere else and someone else to host him when they went away. We thought nothing more about this, and the friend returned the next day for coffee without Beast this time to apologise again. While we were chatting and laughing about what had happened, the doorbell went. I answered it to a lady who I'd never seen before. She explained that she was renting the house, whose garden backed onto mine, and she was sorry to bother me, but she had a bizarre question. And this is where it takes an unexpected turn.
Okay.
Had I seen a wolf recently in my garden, maybe? Now, this is not a common occurrence in Croydon, she admitted, but she had looked out of her bedroom window the previous day to see what she thought was a wolf. In fact, she was sure it was a wolf, standing in her fish pond. The creature trashed the water lilies, as wolves do, tried to catch a frog, also well known to be the target of wolves, and then disappeared through a hole in the fence. Had I seen anything? Well, needless to say, I feigned shock, assured her that I had seen nothing untoward, and commiserated with her regarding the ravaged lilies and terrified wildlife. I'd report that, I said. You can't have wolves roaming around. We haven't had a wolf attack around these parts since the 1950s. I was warming to my theme. Maybe it was a coyote or a lynx. Or maybe a jackal. We have some of them.
Really?
Either way, the authorities should know. Really, she says. Definitely, I said. The RSPCA or the council, maybe. Or the AA, I added, for reasons that I can't quite remember. But they should deal with it.
Yeah.
Anyway, not particularly soothed at all, she grudgingly left, glancing nervously all around in case of a wolf attack. Wolf attack. Wolf attack.
Of a wolf attack.
Oh, there you go. No, I was waiting for the orchestra to climax at that point. She dived into the car, locked all the doors manually, then screeched away down the road. Now, obviously, I need to crave forgiveness from the lady over the fence, who was since obviously not there because she was just renting it. And she still believes she saw a wolf in a garden in Croydon, but also from the good people of the local council, the RSPCA and the AA. Again, I'm not quite sure why I roped them in, who might have had a slightly surprising call from a concerned citizen fearful of a wolf attack. What do I do if I see a wolf? She'd have said. Dear Drive Time crew and listeners, I throw myself at your mercy. That's what I was waiting for.
There it is, yeah.
A smart speaker would soothe my soul. I'm sure it would, I'm sure. All religions say if you get a smart speaker, your soul is fine.
Oh, right.
Anyway, Casey needs forgiveness. I'm not sure what Sister Susie's going to make of this. What do you think, Sister Susie?
Well, Casey, I've always got a soft spot for a confession that involves a dog, and it wasn't his fault. He just went exploring. Well, it wasn't your fault. It might have been his fault. But my old dog that I had used to have a nemesis that looked like a husky, and he absolutely hated them. So I feel like you can't control them, and I think you're forgiven. The woman was only renting and didn't really cause that much damage, so I think I'm going to forgive you.
Very good. Okay, so it's looking positive so far. Brother Matthew.
I'm going to forgive, and I've got a theory. I think that this neighbour who had knocked on the door and said,
Yes.
"Oh, have you seen a wolf?" I think she knew that this dog belonged to that other house, and she was just doing it as a sort of, "Oh, have you seen a wolf?" and then hoping that the neighbour would then turn around and say, "Oh, I'm terribly sorry, that's our dog." She didn't have the nerve to say that's your dog. She just came up with this whole scenario about the wolf, and who can blame the dog for wanting to eat a frog when it's hungry like a wolf? Duran Duran.
Oh, is this going to be a regular
Boom.
occurrence?
In it comes once again.
Okay.
Forgiven.
All right, double forgiveness in the house. Double forgiveness here. Does Casey get your forgiveness? That's the thing. On the People's Verdict, please. 61054. The first word is Simon. Obviously, we'll take wolf confessions, neighbourly confessions, dog confessions. But mainly, we'd like to know, do you forgive Casey? Yes or no? 61054. First word is Simon. However, we had our wolf confession, the first wolf confession. It wasn't a wolf at all. It turned out to be a marmaloot. But meantime, did I get that wrong?
Marmaloot. That sounds right to me.
Yes.
Yeah.
An Alaskan marmaloot.
Yeah.
But it was confused for a wolf, and so the AA and the local council and the RSPCA might have got some calls about something going on in Croydon. Meantime, the People's Verdict came in like this.
Sue in Chester says, "I forgive. Aren't all dogs wolves in some form? He hardly caused much trouble." Kay from Abingdon says, "Not forgiven. I'd be fuming if my neighbour had a dog I didn't know about. You denied her the chance of cuddles with this big ball of fluff. And I know I'd have been very upset if it was me." And finally, forgiven. However, I think the dog needs to beg forgiveness from the frog family. That's from Scott in Croydon.
Okay, yes, and Croydon didn't come out of that very well,
No.
did it? Anyway, so your confession would be welcome. If you have something for us and we like it, we'll exchange it for a smart speaker if we read it out, obviously.
Obviously.
And you send it to confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk. 5:46, this is Greatest Hits Radio Drive Time. Confession time, let's go live to the pub and check in with what our drink should be. A lot of people wait to decide what they're going to be drinking for the next hour, depending on what Susie recommends. What are we going with, Suze, today?
Well, I think, again, a glass of rosé like yesterday would be delightful. Or, a lager shandy could also be quite delicious
Could we get away with both?
in the sunshine. Yeah, why not?
Okay.
A glass of rosé and a lager shandy chaser. How's that?
Wow.
Also, a glass of water or milk is also
Exactly.
fine.
That's also true.
Okay, so here's today's story, and it comes from Scrooge McDuck.
Oh.
Thank you, Scrooge. There you go.
No,
That's very
not
nice.
you.
Thank you very much, Candy. I think you've been on once. So Scrooge McDuck says, Matt, I wish you'd concentrate.
Yeah.
Simon, Matt and Susie is in the pub. I hope you're all well. I'm writing this confession today, not so much to get it off my chest, but just because I think it's so great, it should be shared with the nation.
Ugh.
A warning sign
Yeah.
in the opening
Straight away.
flurry.
Yeah.
We purchased our house about 25 years ago, and right from the start, little things kept happening. Strange things. Indeed, stranger things.
Oh.
We weren't playing Dungeons and Dragons or having visits from the upside down or anything, but doors would open by themselves. Things would go missing and then reappear. Teddy bears were thrown across the room. Plants would die too soon. The oven switched itself on and off, that sort of thing. It was all quite spooky. It doesn't matter if you believe in spirits or not, it sets the scene for this story and where it all began. Having come to peace that we appeared to share our house with a young spirit called Mary, seems a bit random, we lived our lives occasionally asking Mary where our keys were, or the TV remote if we couldn't find it. My wife was always a little scared to be on her own in the house, but inevitably from time to time this would happen. But Mary was a harmless ghost, it seems, just with a tendency to throw teddy bears and turn the oven on and off, that kind of thing. Now, one particular evening I taught karate to a lovely group of adults and children in a school hall about 5 miles from our home. My children would come with me for their weekly lesson, and my wife would be at home alone. She always sat on the settee next to her PC with the screen facing her. On a particularly eventful week, with Mary the ghost causing quite a bit of havoc, Losing my socks on purpose, for example. Also, hiding the Marmite and rearranging the cutlery drawer.
Yeah.
We went out to karate. My wife was nervous, but just about okay. Well, on the way back at around 9 p.m, I pulled the car over to the side of the road and opened an app on my brand new and rather swanky smartphone. The app was called TeamViewer. Now, TeamViewer is a program that allows you to connect to your PC remotely from, say, a mobile phone 5 miles away in a lay-by. I opened Word on the laptop and made the font 48. This is plenty big enough for my wife to see in the corner of her eye while she was watching television, and I typed, "Debbie, I am watching you."
Oh, what?
I didn't have to wait long. Within seconds, my mobile started to ring. I couldn't really understand what she was saying as she was shouting, and she was very muffled. "Calm down," I said. "What's up?" I can't tell you what she replied at that time, because you wouldn't put me on the air. Anyway, I said that I was coming. "Just wait there," I told her. "Everything will be fine." Whilst I was actually still typing on my phone/PC, "I am coming for you."
Oh my goodness.
He cannot help you now. Well, my wife, let me tell you, was terrified and screaming something down the phone. She then ran out of the house and was halfway down the road before I could explain to her that it was me. And it was just a prank. When I arrived home, Father Simon, about 50 minutes later, she was still outside, shaking, very scared and surprisingly angry, I thought. I was doubled over and I had stomach pain from laughing so much. Now, I don't look for forgiveness from my wife, as I see pranks in the family a fair game, and I wouldn't get it anyway, even if I asked for it. And at the end of the day, what is really important is that I get forgiveness from the crew. So before you decide... Yes. But before you decide, though, you need to consider, what is life without laughter?
Well, that's true.
A good point. And what of Ghostly Mary? Well, as time has gone by, our spirit visitor causes less and less problems, fewer problems, in our house, to the point where when something is missing nowadays, it's probably just our own old age or forgetfulness. Well, it's a very interesting tale from Scrooge McDuck. I'm not sure he comes out of it quite as well as he thinks he does.
No.
Sister Susie in the Saloon Bar.
Well, I can't tell you how many things I find wrong with this Scrooge McDuck. I'm sorry. First of all, your houseplant's dying and your oven turning on and off. Maybe you were just forgetful that you didn't water them, or that you forgot that you left it on in the first place. However, life without laughter, that wasn't laughter. That was terrified. I can't believe your wife. I'd be down the road with her and I would say some certain words to you that I can't say right now, but yes. Just not forgiven. I just can't believe it. Just terrible. Not funny at all. That was mean.
Yes.
Not forgiving him.
If you lose the Marmite, it's probably because you just put it over there as opposed to being over there. Anyway,
maybe someone didn't like Marmite in the family and they kept hiding it at the back of the cupboard. Maybe that's it.
I think I know what...
I
Brother Matthew's going to say here.
You know, a couple of questions. I mean, what if plants dying early is a sign of the paranormal? You want to try my garden? Goodness me, it's right in a vortex there. And also, what's he doing teaching karate to kids and adults? I know where my money's going. Straight on the adults. Toss them around all over the room. I am going to forgive.
Maybe he teaches them separately. I don't think that's the heart of the story.
I
really
understood it as them both together. They're just too big. I am going to forgive. Just because, I mean, actually, you know, finding a reason to use that particular app, because I've got it on my phone and never used it. So, you know, being able to type a little message to your loved ones, I mean, it wasn't probably my choice of words, but it definitely worked. And for that reason, I choose to forgive.
Well, it's a split verdict here, but it's the people's verdict that we're relying on here. 61054, first word is Simon. Do you forgive Scrooge McDuck for today's confession? I think there might be some ghost confessions, some mean husband confessions, but we'll see what we're doing. On the people's verdict, you next.
Excellent.
Boom.
Yes.
Anyway, keeps everyone happy. So we did a confession. It came from Scrooge McDuck about how he scared his wife, Mrs. McDuck, by pretending to be the ghost Mary that lived in their house. by saying I'm coming to get you and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
Quite nasty, really, I think, although it was all a lot of fun as far as Scrooge was
Yes, it
concerned.
was.
On the one hand this and on the other hand that.
Yes.
Was that balanced enough?
Well done.
The people's verdict is in, and here it comes.
So Sarah from Devon says, "Oh my goodness, how is Scrooge still married? Not forgiven." Also, well done, Simon, for correcting his grammar. Eddie in Oxfordshire says,
very annoying habit.
Yes, forgiven, sad but true, my kind of bloke, sort of thing I'd do. And finally, Tina George in Basingstoke, channeling Cher, says, "Do you believe in life after laughter? Because I do, and I can only forgive."
Really? What, just like you?
Just like me, yeah.
Okay. So if you have a confession, maybe it's a spooky confession. Maybe there's, as R. Dean Taylor once said, a ghost in your house. Maybe there is something that you wired up to your PC and scared somebody because you sent them a message. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe it sparked a thought. If we use your confession, you need to know that you get a smart speaker. For your pains, or pleasure. Send it to confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk. Thank you for the confessions you've been sending in this week. As soon as we choose one to read out, you get the smart speaker. Let's just check in down at the Saloon Bar, where producer Susie is working hard on producing the show. Checking in with today's top drink item. What are we going for today?
Well, I think today, how about a ginger ale with a nice good squeeze of lime?
Oh, very good.
And I think that would be really refreshing. And then, if you're Matt and you need to add alcohol to it, maybe a dash of rum. But, on its own would be very delightful
Actually,
too.
yeah, if you have a nice squeeze of lemon in there, that'll be very nice. A whole shot of, and also you can have as much of that as you like.
You can.
Yeah, very nice. Okay, as a top suggestion. Why are you frowning?
You have as much as, what, of the rum?
The ginger ale.
Oh,
If
right,
it's ginger ale and a squeeze of lime, you can have as much of that as you like.
I see, yeah, of course.
Not with the rum, obviously.
Yeah.
Anyway, today's tale comes from Jeff. Jeff, thank you very much indeed for today's confession. Dear Father Simon and the beautiful collective, particularly Susie, but also Matt.
But also...
Yeah, just a little bit. I've been mulling this story for a while. I'm not sure if you're going to allow it through. Well, with changes, yes. I know Sister Susie is a fierce moral guardian in these matters. Matt, not so much.
No.
Yeah.
Anyway, some years back, I worked for a company that made essential items for demanding customers. I'm going to leave it vague. My job was not crucial to the firm's operation, I realise, but the office was convivial and the chat usually friendly. I enjoyed my days there, even if Tristram, the office manager, was a little too keen on his own reflection. This is not relevant to the story, but of course, if there's a Tristram in the story, I know how much Matt enjoys it.
Yeah.
So there you go. We were based in a classy part of the world, which was vaguely in the Surrey or Sussex area of the UK. I mean, it's either Surrey or Sussex.
That's pretty vague.
You'd have thought maybe it's on the border. I don't know. My company's phone would ring incessantly because our product was very, very popular with the good folk of Surrey and Sussex, and indeed around the world. I would be constantly answering the phone to customers who would demand 6 of this and 18 of the other. And was the special offer from last year still in place? To which the answer is obviously no, that was last year. Some of our customers, Father Simon, weren't very bright, says Jeff.
Okay.
I wasn't the only one taking orders, although I was Employee of the Month a couple of times. And I was clearly the hardest working, and my orders reflected this. Anyway, there was one other thing that you should know about our company's phone number. It was almost the same as our local radio station. I used to listen to this station and it was pretty good, though obviously not a patch.
Obviously.
Our phone numbers were 1 digit out. Theirs was a 6, ours was a 9. Now, during wintry periods, this radio station had a snow line. This was an important service which advised on where the snow was falling, how much of it was falling, and which roads were affected. If it had been snowing for a while, they would then give all the details of school closures due to bad weather. Parents used to ring my company's phone number in error, and I would correct them politely and professionally and guide them to the correct phone number. For the first 200 times this happened, I kept a level of service that was decent. I'm sorry you need the radio station, try this number, and so on. But I started to feel a little jaded, a little exhausted with that whole be nice to people routine. I mean, it's quite difficult sometimes. So after a few days, and as I was, for a while, the only person in the office early in the morning, Tristram and the others delayed because of the weather, things changed a little. Parents and sometimes children started calling in to ask if their school was closed. And I said yes. One young lad even rang in and his words were, "Is my school closed?" He didn't even tell me which the school was, and I said, "Yes, it is. No school today. Probably none tomorrow either." I then began telling every caller that their school was closed. "Is the Bellevue Academy for Young Ladies still open?" "Not a chance, mate." "Hello, is that the Snow Line?" "Yes," says I. "Is St Custard's open today?" Definitely not.
I mean, come on.
"My Tracy goes to the Bass Street Academy
That's right,
for ne'er-do-wells. Is that open?" "Shut all week, mate." Father Simon, many a call, many a made-up school closure, I have to say. I have honestly no idea how many children got into trouble for not going to school because of me, but when I think about it, maybe quite a few. Maybe it occurs to me now their education was harmed due to my recklessness. I seek forgiveness for my actions, as this guilt has been on me for over 25 years. Thank you, Father Simon. Thank you for your generosity in anticipation of my imminent forgiveness. I'm not sure you're going to get it because, as you say, Sister Susie is a fierce moral guardian in these matters. What do you say, Sister Susie?
Well, I don't know. I'm torn here, Jeff, because, shouldn't they have contacted the school themselves to find out if it was closed? Why are they calling the local radio station?
Because of the Snow Line.
Well, yeah, but you can't go direct, I think. And, if you had that many calls, over 200, I probably would have stopped answering at one point. So you actually were doing a little bit of good, maybe? I don't know. Maybe I'm in a forgiving mood. But I'm going to forgive you because their probably school was closed if it was that snowy. And you only did it the one day.
I'm shocked. I
know.
Lax. I think there's something else in your
I've got to
ginger
say,
ale.
I'm in lockstep with Susie.
Oh,
And
really?
That showed you how far her morals have sunk. I mean, quite right. Why are you ringing up the radio station? Ring up. Here's a thought. Ring the school. Or, listen to the radio, which will then tell you whether your school is shut or not. Absolutely right, Suze. Good to know you and I are on the same level.
Wow.
Oh, dear.
Yes, definitely forgiven. Right down there with the sewers.
Children's education was damaged by Jeff's recklessness.
Yep.
Okay, I don't forgive then. That's not fair.
Oh, what?
Says the people's verdict. Please do forgive Jeff. Yes or no. 61054. First word is Simon for the people's verdict. Or you can email Simon at greatesthitsradio.co.uk. The people's verdict is on the way. But merely moments ago, Jeff told us his confession. How it was kind of a customer service thing, but the phone number for his company was one digit out from the local radio station. They were running a Snow Line. And eventually, when people were ringing and saying, "Oh, the school's closed," he just said, "Yes, they're all closed. Take the week off." People's verdict is in. Here it comes.
Yeah, everyone's forgiving. Ali the Witch says, "Forgiven, blame the parents as they dialed incorrectly." Andy says, "Forgiven, my parents' phone number used to be the same as Radio T's, except for one digit. They got so fed up of people calling late at night for the phone in that they used to pretend to put them on air and then leave them to natter away." Paul in Bradford, "Forgiven, I had a similar situation. My home phone number was pretty much the same as a local leisure centre. After too many calls, I gave in and booked a few squash courts."
Very good, thank you. Forgiveness is given. So your confession, please, to confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk.